Yes, it is. All right, good morning and welcome to another informative Learn session hosted by the Tompkins Chamber and sponsored by Tompkins Trust Company. Today, we're very excited to partner with Ithaca Area Economic Development, or IAED, for our next Learn session hosted with New York State COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Programs. We're very fortunate today to have Mr. Matthew Kennedy. Matthew is the Economic Development Program Specialist with Empire State Development, and he's going to this morning talk about eligibility and documentation requirements for this program. So if you have any questions at the end, feel free to remind yourself by putting them in the chat, and Matthew can pull those questions, or we'll have about 10-15 minutes at the end to answer any questions you may have specific to your business or general questions about the program and applying for the grants. Thank you all for being here. And without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to our host, our presenter rather, this morning, Mr. Matthew Kennedy.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, David. So my name is Matthew Kennedy from Empire State Development's Division for Small Business and Technology Development. I am based out of the office in Albany, downtown Albany. I'm part of the statewide office, and I'm part of the Small Business Division's Access to Capital team. I've been working on the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program now for the last several months. So I wanted to give everyone an update and also go through the program, explain the qualifications for the program, how to apply, some of the best practices, some of the documentation you're going to need. So there's quite a bit of money still available in the program. One of the things I am going to do is I'm going through this presentation. I'm actually going to pause my camera so that way you'll still be able to hear me, but it'll focus on the slides. And that way there aren't any bandwidth issues, because sometimes the bandwidth can start to slow down and the slides will start to break up. My voice might break up. So to prevent that, I'm going to try to limit that a little bit with the camera. So we'll get ready to begin. So this program, by the way, that I'm going to present today is based on the Program and Application Guide. The Program and Application Guide is a document that's part of the program that gets updated on a regular basis. You'll see this one was revised on September 30th, that is available on our website at all times. So there's a lot of sort of technical information that gets into this guide that I'll go over fairly quickly when I'm doing this today, because it's not really appropriate to present in this type of venue. But this document is available for you to download on that page. So you can always refer back to this document. These slides are available translated into 13 other languages. So it's actually a total of 14 languages with English are available on the front page of the website. So you can always refer to that if you need to refer back to what I'm discussing. So let's begin. So the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program was created to provide flexible grant assistance to viable small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations who have experienced economic hardship due to COVID-19. This is specifically for for-profit businesses. You do have to be a for-profit business to qualify. The website to apply is open right now, www.nysmallbusinessrecovery.com. Again, that's nysmallbusinessrecovery.com. That site is hosted by an organization called Lendistry. You're going to see on these slides in many places, you're going to see the phrase powered by Lendistry. Lendistry is our partner in processing these applications. They are hosting the website and they are running the call center, the helpline for the program, along with processing the actual applications. So Lendistry is a nationwide CDFI. That's a fintech organization, has a particular prowess in handling programs like this with large numbers of applications. They actually have also worked on programs in California and in Pennsylvania that have been similar to this grant program. So it's one of the reasons they were selected. So if during the process of your applying for a grant, if you should see contact from Lendistry, from an organization called Lendistry, they're actually contacting you regarding this grant. Everything that you see is contact is probably not going to say Empire State Development. It's probably going to say Lendistry. So please, if in the process they are trying to reach out to you, make sure you respond, because I'm sure that they're contacting you regarding the grant, and they are, of course, our agents as part of this program. So grant amounts. Everyone wants to know how much of a grant they can qualify for, right? So grant rewards are based upon your annual gross receipts for 2019. So they're based upon your annual gross receipts as they appear on your federal tax return, your filed federal tax return. So for businesses between $25,000 and $49,999, those businesses can qualify for a $5,000 flat grant. So it's $5,000 for those businesses. Businesses with annual gross receipts between $50,000 and $99,999 will qualify for a $10,000 flat grant. And then businesses with annual gross receipts between $100,000 and $2.5 million, it would be 10% of the gross receipts up to a maximum of $50,000. This is an important thing that changed at the end of August. We increased the amount of gross receipts allowed. So the gross receipts cap used to be $500,000. It is now $2.5 million, which is actually going to let in far more businesses than were previously allowed into the program. So it's one of the reasons I want to definitely point that out. It is now $2.5 million, and that is a change from when the program launched. And we'll talk a little bit in a moment about how your annual gross receipts are actually calculated. But before we go too far, I do want to cover some definitions that I use during the course of this presentation to make sure everyone's on the same page. When I'm referring to a small business means that it's a business that is resident in New York State, incorporated in New York State, licensed and registered to do business in the state of New York, is independently owned and operated, and has 100 or fewer employees. So it's going to be a business that's organized in the state of New York with 100 fewer employees. That's what we consider to be a small business. A micro business is also a small business, but it's even smaller. Micro business is also going to be a small business incorporated in the state of New York, registered to do business in the state of New York, independently owned and operated, but it'll have 10 or fewer employees. So really, it's the smallest of small businesses. Most of the applicants for this program have actually been micro businesses. When I mentioned a for-profit independent arts and cultural organization, those are also small businesses, but they're going to be in a specific field. They're going to really be in the fields of architecture, dance, film, design, museums, folk art, music, literature. They are also required to have 100 or fewer employees. However, when it comes to for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations, their seasonal employees aren't counted in their quotas, so they can have more seasonal employees than 100. That is allowable. Finally, when I mentioned the COVID-19 health and safety protocols, these are any of the restrictions that were imposed from Executive Order 202 for the shutdown for COVID-19. So any of those health and safety protocols that were put in place statewide or locally are considered to be covered. So a small business, micro business, or for-profit independent arts and cultural organization to qualify does need to be currently viable. So it needs to be open. It needs to currently be in operation and have to have begun operation on or before March 1st, 2019. So this is specifically for businesses that were in operation for a year prior to COVID. So the business would have opened 1 year before the pandemic. Also, there's another determination for viability where we use your net profit in 2019 as a guide as to whether it's a viable for-profit business. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And eligible applicants are required to show a loss of gross receipts as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic or compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. So again, a small business or micro business must have between $25,000 and $2.5 million of gross receipts per annum as reflected on their filed federal tax returns, using your federal tax returns in this case, for the year 2019 or the year 2020. Now I want to point out that's an or. So it's 2019 or 2020 gross receipts. So why is that important? If you are a business, let's say you had $5 million in gross receipts in 2019, but in 2020, thanks to the pandemic, you only had $2 million in gross receipts. You had a significant loss. That business could potentially qualify for a grant because their 2020 gross receipts are inside those thresholds. So the 2019 is above, but that is okay. Excuse me. For a smaller business, let's say a business that had $200,000 in gross revenues in 2019, and then in 2020 only had $20,000 in revenues, which would be below the threshold, that business could also potentially qualify because the 2019 gross receipts are inside the revenue thresholds. So you only have to meet one of the two thresholds. You can meet them both, but you only have to meet one or the other to qualify to apply for the grant. Now, for gross receipts, we are using specifically line 1A as the location of gross receipts value on the IRS Form 1120 or the Form 1065, which is the corporate or partnership tax return. It's going to be line 1 on a Form 1040 Schedule C if you're a sole proprietor, or it's the sum of line 1A and line 2 if you happen to be a sole proprietor farmer using Schedule F on your Form 1040, which actually is goods resold and goods grown. Also, number 2, and I mentioned this before, a for-profit business to show that it was viable prior to COVID is expected to show some sort of net profit in 2019's business tax return. In this case, it's $1. Looking for $1 in profit as a for-profit business prior to the pandemic. That information can be found on line 28 on your Form 1120 or line 21 if it's a 1120S. The 1120S is slightly different. Line 22 on your Form 1065, that's your partnership. Line 31 or line 34 on the 1040 Schedule C or the Schedule F. And that's what we're basing the viability calculation on. It's positive net profit in the 2019 business tax return. Also, number 3, a business does need to be able to demonstrate at least a 25% loss in annual gross receipts in a year-to-year revenue comparison from 2019 to 2020. Essentially, what we're doing in most cases here is we're taking your 2019 tax return, taking your gross receipts, taking your 2020 tax return, taking your gross receipts, subtracting 2020 from 2019, and that percentage loss is your basis, needs to be at least 25% loss. There is, however, for some small businesses, one other item. If you are a sole proprietor and you happen to have qualified for federal assistance in 2020 under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, so you as the owner of the business could get unemployment assistance from the federal government under certain circumstances that you would not normally be eligible for under unemployment law because of not paying unemployment insurance on yourself. If you did receive money from the federal government, those 2020 values, the amount you received in that program for 2020 does get added back to your gross receipts. It counts as gross receipts for your business. And it's going to be found in a different spot on your tax return. So it is important to point out, if you are a sole proprietor, those monies will get added back to your gross receipts before the 25% calculation is made. There's nothing that you have to do as a sole proprietor to provide this information. We're getting the information directly from the Department of Labor. So all you need to do is submit your application and it'll be verified. That information gets verified during the process of the actual application being verified and everything being validated. So, and again, I want to give you a special example here to show how this can affect your application. So here's an example of a business with $1 million in gross receipts in 2019 with $750,000 in gross receipts in 2020. They would have a 25% loss that would normally be eligible. However, if the owner of that business happened to receive pandemic unemployment assistance in 2020 at $10,000, on the example on the right, then their annual gross receipts plus their pandemic assistance would be $260,000, which would be a 24% loss. So they'd no longer be eligible for the grant. So it can have an effect on your eligibility, but it is one of the federal programs that does qualify, that does count. Also, you need to be able to demonstrate that your total expenses in your 2020 business income tax return are greater than your grant. These are reimbursement grants. They're reimbursements for expenses that have already been incurred by the business, COVID-related expenses. So those COVID-related expenses would naturally appear on your tax return. On your 2020 business income tax return. If for some reason your total liabilities in your 2020 business income tax return are lower than the grant you would receive, they're going to reduce the amount of grant you receive because you couldn't have had the expenses to reimburse. So that would be the reason that would work. Not very many businesses are going to fall into that category, but it is possible. Be rather lucky to be a business that had, let's say, $100,000 in revenue and had less than $10,000 in expenses. Also, you do need to be in compliance with applicable federal, state, and local laws. So that's going to mean things like if you happen to be a bar and your liquor license is currently revoked, you're serving patrons, that would be a problem. That would not be compliance with federal, state, and local laws. You are not allowed to owe any federal, state, or local taxes prior to July 15th, 2020 that are in arrears unless they're covered by an approved repayment plan. So that essentially, as long as you are making payments on your back taxes, if you do have back taxes, that is acceptable. That's one of the things that you attest to when you go through the actual application. You just need to provide proof that you're making payments, that you're on a payment plan, and that's fine. Also, number 7, like I mentioned with some of these federal programs, like I mentioned with PUA, there are limitations on how much a business can have received in federal assistance. And the biggest one of those limitations is going to be Paycheck Protection Program. So a business cannot have received Paycheck Protection Program loans totaling $250,000 or more across both rounds. So as long as a business received less than $250,000, that could be zero, of course, $0 to $250,000, that business will qualify for a grant. That business can qualify for a grant. It's only if you've exceeded $250,000 in total between rounds 1 and 2. So if you only got one in round 1, that's fine. If you got one in both rounds, as long as they're summed together, it's less than $250,000. Forgiven, unforgiven, doesn't matter. That has no effect on it. It's $250,000 is the maximum. Also, a business may have received an EIDL advance grant of up to $10,000 or an EIDL supplemental target advance grant of up to $5,000. For the EIDL program, so there were advance grants that were available that went along with the loans. These are not the loans themselves, these are the grants. And there should not be anybody who received a grant greater than $10,000 as an advance grant or greater than $5,000 for a supplemental targeted advance grant. So really everyone who received an EIDL loan should still qualify for the program. It shouldn't exclude anybody. Your actual loan doesn't matter. It's not a qualification. You can get as large an EIDL loan as you like. You can get as large of any loan as you like. Loans are not a disqualifying factor for the program. Also, if you received an SBA shuttered venue operator grant, if you happen to be one of those arts and cultural organizations that happen to qualify for that program, you are allowed to get one, and it can be of any size. So those are not excluded as part of the program. It's really primarily paycheck protection loans greater than $250,000 that you have to worry about. Also, eligible applicants do have to provide evidence acceptable to the state of New York that the eligible applicant is operational and you're not restricted by any state or local mandate, of course. Due to the limited amount of funding and the high volume of requests expected, your business type, your geography, and your industry could factor into your ability to receive a grant. It is possible that as funding starts to end, there is money that has to be directed towards one region to another if there's too many grants being granted in other parts of the state. It is very possible. Also, priority is given to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, including but not limited to people with disabilities, service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses, and businesses that are located in communities that were economically distressed prior to March 1st, 2020, as determined by the most recent census data. Those applications are given priority processing. They're pulled to process first, although everyone is being pulled to process. And all applicants are encouraged to get the required documentation uploaded within 14 days of applying. This is important. We want to have you get your information as soon as possible so we can begin the process of processing your grant. So we do ask that you get your documents uploaded in 14 days, and we'll talk more about what documents you need and where you upload them in a few minutes. But if you fail to complete an application or upload all your required documents within 60 days, your application is going to go inactive. So what's going to happen is your application is essentially going to be put entirely on pause. We're not going to be reaching out to you any further to get you to upload more documents or to remind you to upload more documents. And you have to upload all your documents to reactivate your application. So after 60 days, we continue on processing other applications, not trying to process yours. So I do want to mention some ineligible businesses. These are businesses that are always ineligible for the program. Nonprofits, churches, and other religious institutions are always ineligible. You cannot be a nonprofit and qualify. Government-owned entities and elected official offices. Government-owned entities, of course, don't qualify. Businesses primarily engaged in political lobbying activities won't qualify. And this one can be important. Businesses that received awards from the SBA Restaurant Revitalization Grant Program. Those businesses don't qualify. If you had a food-based business and you were lucky enough to get into the Restaurant Revitalization Grant Fund, you know, those grants were very generous. They were intended to make up all of your lost revenues for your business during that period. There were a lot of businesses that tried to apply, a lot of businesses that would have qualified. Of course, it ran out of money fairly quickly, and a lot of businesses didn't get to be part of it. So if you received funding from it, you would not qualify for this grant. You can't receive both of these grants. If you applied and were unable to receive funding, of course, you can still apply for this grant. You can still get funding from it. Or if you didn't apply at all, of course, you can still get funding from this grant. But if you did receive SBI Restaurant Revitalization Grant funds, you will not be qualified. Also, landlords and passive real estate income businesses are not qualified. There are other programs for landlords and for real estate income businesses. Illegal businesses and enterprises will also not qualify. Of course, you can't get a grant for your illegal business. So we've talked a lot about documentation and amounts. We haven't talked about how you can use the funds. So your eligible use of grant funds. Grants are to be used for COVID-19 related expenses incurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. So again, these are dates in the past. We realize these are reimbursement grants. So this is essentially reimbursing a business, making a business whole for these expenses that they incurred during that time period related to COVID. So examples of those COVID related expenses would be payroll costs, commercial rent or mortgage payments on your New York based property. And this would be payments that were specifically due inside of March 1st, 2020 to April 1st, 2021. They couldn't be prepayments for payments. However, unlike the Paycheck Protection Program, these payments can be for mortgage principal. So principal payments do count. Payment of your local property or school taxes associated with your business in New York State, that would be a qualified use of funds. Insurance costs are qualified use. Utility costs are qualified use. So that includes things like your phone, internet service, costs of personal protection equipment necessary to protect workers' health and safety, along with your consumers. So that's for workers and consumers. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning costs. Now, this not only includes the cost of air conditioning and heating themselves, the actual cost of the utilities, but also the equipment repairs and equipment changes that need to be made due to COVID. So if you needed to upgrade your filters for your air conditioning system, that would be a qualified expense. Also, other machinery and equipment costs related to COVID, as I start to lose my voice. Other machinery and equipment costs related to COVID would qualify. So an example of that might be if you are a restaurant and you needed extra food warmers for to-go orders, or if you needed patio heaters or that tent to put outside for your business, those things could qualify as COVID-related machinery and equipment expenses. And then finally, supplies and materials necessary for compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. That's going to be things like the plexiglass and the plastic and the plywood and Lexan and all those things that you needed, all the stickers and screws and things you need to build barriers to create physical distancing in your business due to COVID. Any of those types of expenses, those are all allowable expenses. There are two COVID-related expenses that are not considered eligible uses of funds. They're going to seem like they're COVID-related, but they're specifically payments on your COVID-related loans. So your actual COVID-related loan payment, your EIDL payment, your New York Forward Loan Fund payment, those are not considered to be eligible uses of funds. What you might use those loans for could be eligible uses of funds, but the payments themselves are not considered eligible uses of funds. So now I want to change gears a little bit and talk about documentation. And really the documentation is the thing that is tripping up the most businesses as they're going to apply. So I really want to focus on what documentation very specifically we're looking for, what documentation you need to provide, what you need to upload in order to have your application processed as smoothly as possible. So first, for proof of gross receipts or loss or other economic hardship, for your proof of gross receipts, we do need your 2019 and your 2020 business income tax returns. We need the complete filed documents, the complete filed federal tax returns for the business. This is going to include all the schedules. If you filed a 1040, if you're a sole proprietorship, we need your full 1040 along with Schedule C. Can't just be Schedule C, but we do need the complete filed documents. That's very important. Second, potentially we can request a 4506C, which is a transcript request to verify your tax returns. These are not being requested in all circumstances. And if you do have to provide one, or if we do need one for your business, Lendistry, as they process this, will reach out to you to give you a document to have you sign. A 4506C has some lines on it that need to be pre-filled out before you sign it. So it directs where the transcript can be sent to. So please don't sign and upload a blank one. You can mark it off NA when you go to upload your documents for the time being to make sure that it shows that you don't need one. The only situation where you're going to need to have to fill one out is if Lendistry actually reaches out to you to complete one. Number 3, for proof of business location and current operation, this is to show that you're currently operating and where your business is located. We're looking for any 2 of the following items off this list. So we need 2 of them, one for business location, one for operation. Your current lease, so it could be the current lease that you're operating under, a utility bill, a current business bank statement, so a statement for your business bank account, current business mortgage statement. If you have a mortgage on your business, that will work fine. A business credit card statement. So if you happen to have a credit card that's in the name of the business, that credit card statement will work. A professional insurance bill. So any sort of insurance related to your business, if you happen to be, like, say, if you were a driver, that would be car insurance would qualify. A payment processing statement. That's going to be for businesses that use a payment processing company, like let's say a Square, let's say you have somebody to help you process credit card payments. The statement from them showing the credit card transactions that you've done, that would be acceptable. Also, your New York State 809 or your ST100 sales tax collection documentation. Those are acceptable uses or acceptable proofs. Those are your quarterly and your monthly sales tax documentation that shows you're collecting sales tax in the state of New York for your business. So if you're doing something where you're collecting sales tax, you're going to file those documents. Either of those documents, the most recently filed ones, those are acceptable as proof of location or current operation. Also, we do look for a schedule of ownership. This is specifically for businesses that aren't sole proprietors that have more than one owner. If your business has more than one owner that has at least a 20% share of ownership, we do collect information on those owners. Specifically, we do need the names, addresses, social security numbers or ITIN numbers, phone numbers, email address, or percentage ownership, and their photo ID for any owners with 20% more ownership of the business. Again, if you're a sole proprietorship, you do not need this document. So sole proprietors will not need it. If you happen to have only one owner of the business, you shouldn't need it. You may want to check it off in the portal that you don't need your schedule of ownership. For businesses that have employees, that have W-2 employees, for your proof of number of employees, we use your most recently submitted New York State 45 document. All right, this is going to be what you file to show that you're doing, that you're withholding taxes for your employees, or you're paying unemployment insurance for your employees. This most recently filed quarterly document, we do need that. And finally, for proof of business organization, and we need only one of any of these items off this list: your current business license, a current business certificate, a certificate of organization, a certificate of assumed name, commonly called the DBA, New York State certificate of authority, your articles of incorporation, or any other New York State municipality issued document that shows you're authorized to operate in the state of New York. Any of those documents is acceptable for proof of business organization. And then finally, for funds distribution, we do collect the W-9 and your bank account information. I'll touch about that at the very, very end of this presentation. But I want to give some examples of required documentation. Here's an example of an 1120S form, at least the top of the header of one, so you can see one. There's an example of a Schedule K1 on a partnership Form 1065. Make sure you include this as part of your your tax document should have a Schedule K1 that shows the breakdown between the partners. It's important to include that. If you are a sole proprietor farming business, your Schedule F is an example of a Schedule F. There's an example of a 4506C. Again, if you look at it really closely, you'll see that the line 5A, line 5B need to be filled out beforehand before you sign. There's an example of a current business license, usually posted someplace conspicuously in your place of business. Current business certificate. This particular one looks like it's for a used car dealer. That would be posted in a conspicuous place someplace in your business as well. Most of these are usually framed and placed someplace near your cash register. Your certificates of incorporation, if you have those, is an example certificate of incorporation. Here's an example certificate of an assumed name. Of course, these are typically going to come from your county clerk's office. Here's an example certificate of authority. This is actually an authority to collect sales tax from your Department of Taxation and Finance. Again, these are supposed to be posted someplace near your cash register, near your cash wrap, someplace where you're collecting the money. Articles of incorporation, examples of articles of incorporation you can use. There's also an example of an ST 809, which is the monthly sales tax form if you file your sales tax monthly. I do want to point out here again that these do need to be the most recently filed documents. So for a monthly type document, something like a bank statement, a mortgage statement, a business credit card statement, usually a payment processing statement, or the ST 809, it does need to be within 30 days from when you apply. It should be the most recent document. For the other documents, things like a current lease, potentially an insurance bill, obviously your ST 809 is a quarterly document. Those types of documents, if they are quarterly or they're not a monthly document, then it needs to be the one most recently submitted. So it should be the current document. Obviously, your lease might be more than 30 days old. So also a couple of more examples. There's an ST 100 quarterly sales tax document. There's an example of a New York State 45. If you're not an employer firm, you don't file one of these. So again, it's not required. But if you do file them, you'll know that it's got the number of employees listed on a monthly basis right here in the top header. Here's an example of a schedule of ownership. Again, this is the information we do collect for each of the owners. Again, it's not necessary if you are 100% owner, if you're a sole proprietor. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this particular document that I'm basing this on is something that's available for download. So now I'm going to head into the section of it where you're going to see things that say things like download this form in the portal by clicking here. Obviously, you can't click on the presentation screen and have it work. But when you go to download this document off the website, if you go to refer to it later, of course, you can click on that and it will take you to where you can download the document. You can also download it via the application portal. But we're going to head into a section of this document now that has a lot of information like that. Also, example of a W-9 and your bank account information. So applicant certification. One of the documents that you do need to provide that I didn't cover is an applicant certification. This is just part of the actual application process. This is where you as the business owner attests that all of the parameters that I laid out previously are true for your business. I am a for-profit business. I am not in arrears of my taxes, so on and so forth. So this is a document that you have to download or DocuSign on the site. I'm not going to read through all 22 questions that are part of it, but you essentially go through, make sure that you can answer all the questions positively, or make sure you can answer all the questions. You initial each of them and then sign it. And then you can either re-upload it to the website, or again, you can DocuSign it on the website. And again, this particular document that I'm using as this presentation has full instructions on how to do this, how to download or print the application certification, how to re-upload it. I'm not going to go through where you click on the screen right now to upload the document, how to re-upload the document, but there is help in this document, in this particular program guide available on the website. Again, complete instructions on how to print it and how to re-upload it. So now some tips for applying. We do suggest you use Google Chrome as your browser for the best experience. The website is designed to be used under Google Chrome. It'll probably work with most browsers. I would not try to use Internet Explorer 11. However, everybody else's browser will probably work, but you'll get the best experience with Google Chrome. We do suggest you clear your cache. We do suggest you open an incognito mode window or private mode window. This is going to keep any add-ons to your browser from potentially sniffing the data. The point of clearing your cache, by the way, is to make sure that it doesn't autofill any data. Also, you want to disable your pop-up blocker. You do have to disable your pop-up blocker for the application to work. There are places during the application that pop-ups pop up that you have to click through, disclosures and so forth. So it's not going to allow you to complete the application if you can't see the pop-up. And again, there are full instructions here how to clear your cache, how to use incognito mode, how to disable your pop-up blocker. I don't think anyone tuned in this morning for a Google lessons in Google Chrome. So I'm going to move on to document formats. When you do upload your documents, they do need to be in PDF format. It is important to point that out. They need to be PDF portable document format documents. They can't just be images or JPEGs or PNG files from your cell phone camera. Those won't work, unfortunately. They do need to be in PDF format. Now, you can still use your cell phone to upload these documents if that's what you have available to you as a scanner, because you don't have a desktop scanner. That's fine. There are applications like Genius Scan and Adobe Scan that are free applications you can download for your Android phone or for your Apple phone that will use your camera to create PDF files. So you can actually make these files and upload them from your phone or from your tablet. Shouldn't be a problem. But again, they do need to be in PDF format. That is very important. That's one of the things that causes problems for people, is they upload documents in the wrong format. They can't be opened. They can't be viewed, because there's some machine learning that goes along with this, where the machine opens the documents and looks at them. So they do need to be in the proper format. Also, I'm going to ask that please, before you upload the PDF, make sure one, it's what you have it marked as, that's the right document. Two, make sure it's legible. Make sure that it's clear, it's not out of focus or misframed, or and let's say, for example, sometimes people copy the wrong sides of pages. If they're using a scanner, they'll scan the backside. They'll scan blank pages by accident instead of scanning the front side of a page. Any of those things, those are very important. Take a look at the PDF before you open up the PDF and view it and flip through it. Make sure it's correct before you upload it. This document, by the way, that we're using for this presentation, this is a PDF. So it's just a matter of going through, checking it. It's always a good idea to check it before you upload it. That way you can save yourself a lot of grief. And do yourself a favor, if for some reason they reject a document and a document isn't correct, don't just re-upload the same document. Look at it again, make sure that it's not whatever the error was, it was corrected before you re-upload it. Otherwise, it's going to get rejected a second time. We do suggest you use a valid email address. This should be straightforward, but whatever email address you use for the application, please use something you're going to monitor, that you understand how your spam filter works. You're going to receive a lot of emails regarding this program. Emails important as part of the processing of this program. Please don't use an email address like a sales at your website, or a support at your website, or an admin at your website type email address, because those can potentially be compromised, and the system knows not to send them. It kind of puts a little fraud flag on your file if you see those as an email address. So I would suggest using an email address you're going to monitor. Personal email address is fine. Just make sure if it's something that you're going to monitor, and you know how your spam filter works, so you can check your spam filter and make sure nothing is going into your spam. Also, the application, this document, all of our help is available it's available in 13, translated into 13 other languages. This includes non-English language support on our full website and the phone lines. So this information is available in other languages, if that helps. And finally, I want to go through some of the application. So you're ready to apply. You've gone to the recovery website and you've clicked "Let's get started" to begin the process. So it's going to get you started on completing your application. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to take you to a screen where you have to wait. Now this screen is actually, there's a sort of a sentry screen that's built into the website that prevents bots and prevents various automatic programs and things from jumping into the application system and trying to fill out fake applications or filling it full of fraudulent data. If you've ever bought anything online, if you've ever bought anything hot at Christmas time, like a game system, you're going to have encountered a screen like this. It's just designed to throttle a website to try to keep those programs out, and it's designed to control the number of people that are filling out applications simultaneously. That way, the site is responsive. So there'll be a momentary pause before it lets you in. It's probably not going to be any more than 60 seconds. However, you will see a screen like this when you first click on that. When it lets you in, it's going to take you to section 1. So section 1 is very straightforward. It needs your name, your email address, your phone number, your business name, your zip code, your referral partner. If you've been referred by an organization, you can always put them in there, and your preferred language. Also on the screen, there is a place where you can accept a text policy. We can send you things via SMS, via text message. They'll come via a secured number, actually, in your texts, one of the 5-digit numbers. It's a great way to get around your spam filter. If you have spam issues or your spam concerns, I would go ahead and click on that. Strongly suggest it. If you click on that to accept it, it's going to give you a dialog box that's going to pop up. You'll have to click OK, and you can click continue. And it's going to move you on to section 2. This is the actual owner details. This is the person who's applying, person who's the owner. This is going to ask for your first and last name, your email address, the owner's address, the owner's birthday, owner's social security number, and your percentage of ownership. So this is the information it's going to use to create a user account so you can upload your documents. So this is important. Make sure the email address you use is the one you want to use to receive the user account. And then it's going to give you a box to click. I accept the terms and conditions. You're going to click on that. It's going to give you an OK dialog box to pop up, where you can view the terms and conditions if you want to. You can click OK, click save and agree. As soon as you've clicked this, it's going to generate a user account for you. It's going to appear in the background, actually probably going to appear in your email box while you're completing the rest of the application, and you won't even realize it's done it. But this user account is what you can use to log back in. If for some reason you get knocked out of completing your application, you can log back in using those login credentials to complete the rest of the answers in your application, should you get somehow disconnected from the website. That's important because you don't want to file more than one application per grant per business. You want to make sure you only do one application per business. So now section 3, your business information. This is where it's going to ask you the specifics about the name of your business. If you're operating under a DBA, your business EIN number, your phone number, your business type, which is your formation type, your state of incorporation, which should be New York. It's going to ask for your business address, your business start date. This was the date your business was established. Again, it needs to be before March 1st, 2019. And it's going to ask for your business website if you have it available. If you do have one, then it's going to move on to section 4. Section 4 is going to ask how we can help. This is more specifically what you think you're going to use the grant for. It's going to give you a drop-down menu. You can choose anything off the list. It's not going to affect the processing. Defaults to payroll costs. It's going to ask you to estimate how much you think of a grant you're eligible for. There is a check eligibility box that's on that line as well, where you answer that question, where you can pop up a little dialog box. It'll show you that chart again from the beginning of this presentation as to how to calculate how much you think you qualify for. And that's just an estimate, whatever you put in. If you put in $1 million, you're not going to get $1 million grant. If you put in less than you qualify for, you can still get the larger grant. It's just an estimate for processing purposes as to how much you think you qualify for. Also, it's going to ask for your gross receipts from your 2019 tax return. It's going to ask if your business was profitable in 2019. Of course, the answer to that should be yes. And it's going to ask for your number of employees, along with a couple other simple employee questions, the most important one being the number of full-time employees. There are a couple things I do want to point out that will help you processing, will help you with this section. First, you'll notice on the was your business profitable in 2019 line, all the way to the right, there is a little eye icon. This little eye icon on the website, if you hover your mouse over it, it's going to give you more information as to where you can find that information and why it's important. It's going to give you more context for the question. Also, you'll see there's a watch video button in the corner of this section. Every section's got a little watch video button. There's a video that you can click on inside the application itself. It'll pop up a box. It'll show you a video to help you try to answer the application questions and how to answer them and where to find the information. And those videos are actually subtitled in all those different languages as well. And we do ask that the business owners that are paid employees of the business and receive a W-2 be included in the employee count. So if you are not a W-2 employee, you don't have to count yourself as an employee. But if you are a W-2 employee, as the owner, if you pull a W-2, you pay, you pay payroll taxes through your business itself, then you should count yourself as an employee. Section 5 is business demographics. This is going to ask more about what your business does, what industry you work in, if your business is a business to consumer business, a little bit of both. It's going to ask you what your product business does, sells products, makes products, wholesale, retail. There are 3 different dialog boxes that pop up here. What does your business do? What type of business is this? And tell us more. Where you can go in and you can choose things from a pull down menu as to where your business fits. More importantly, it's going to ask for your NAICS code. So if you're a small business and you don't know what a NAICS code is, NAICS code is a federally assigned, there's a federally assigned code for each industry that a business can operate in. And that code, the industry your business operates in, of course, is up to you. It's not something that's assigned by the government, but each industry itself has been assigned a code. So you can go to their website. If you don't know what your NAICS code is, there is a website you can click on right here. Click here to find your NAICS code, where you can put in the type of industry that you work in, and it's going to give you a 6-digit code that qualifies or that shows that this is the industry. This is what the federal identification code for that industry is. You want to type that industry code in there. That's how we judge what industries your business is in. If you're a certified MWBE, you're going to know your NAICS code off the top of your head because it's part of your certification process. Any state certified business is probably going to know what your NAICS code is. But if you don't know what it is, you can always find it there. It also could potentially be on your tax return. Some tax returns, sometimes it'll be on your actual tax return. Also on here, it's going to ask if you're a woman-owned business, a veteran-owned business, if you're disabled. It's going to ask race and ethnicity information. If you're a franchise, if you're a minority-owned business, it's going to ask all these questions on this particular screen. With that, last, it's going to move on to section 6, which are all the disclosures. Now, there are 19 questions in the disclosure section. I'm not going to read them all, but it's going to ask you to answer things that are very similar to what was on that attestation form at the beginning. It's going to ask, as the date of application, your business open and operating, or is your business organized as a for-profit business? You have to go through and answer those questions. It's also going to ask for your annual gross receipts from 2019 and 2020 off your tax returns in the section. This is where you have to put that information in. So you're going to want to make sure that you have your tax returns handy to add that information in. I'm going to ask if you received any help or support from any organizations and so forth. Once you've gone through and answered all those disclosures, you're going to move on to the confirmation screen. So the confirmation screen, you have 2 choices, yes or no. If you choose yes, it's going to submit your application. So if you choose yes and choose continue, your answers are saved, they're stored, they're locked in, and you have submitted your application, and now it's time to upload your documents. If you should choose no, then you can hit save and continue later. What will happen is it will save your answers. It won't actually submit your application for processing. You won't be able to start uploading documents yet, but if you did need to go back and edit anything or change anything, make sure anything was correct, like let's say your revenues or your gross receipts, you could still go back and edit them. Once you hit yes through this process, your answers are locked in. You can't change them. The only way to change them is to contact the call center. If you contact the call center, they can change those answers. But once you've actually submitted your application, there's no way to go back and edit your answers to the questions. And again, once you've submitted yes, click yes, all applicants are encouraged to get their required documentation uploaded within 14 days of applying. And that's also when the 60-day clock will appear. Failure to complete an application, upload all required documents within 60 days will deem an application inactive. So when you click yes, you're going to get a confirmation message. It's going to show that yes, you've submitted, you've completed it, and it's going to mention your email with your portal access to upload your documents. It is also going to give you the 877 number, 877-721-0097, which is the call center number, which is also available. If you need to find that number, it's also available right on the front page of the website. Open Monday to Friday, 8 to 8. Right now, it's also open on Saturdays, I believe, 9 to 6. but you'll receive a confirmation message, and you're going to receive this document in your email. You said this probably appeared while you were completing your application. This is your username and password for the portal where you go to upload your application documents. Your username is your email address. Your password, this is a temporary password. You're going to log in the first time with it, and it's going to let you create a permanent password. But this portal, this application portal, is important. This is where you're going to go and upload all your documents. This is also where you can check the status of your application while it's being processed. So this is important information to keep this email safe. So now, uploading documents. How do you upload your documents in the portal? When you log into the portal, it's going to give you a screen that's going to show just one little box that's going to show your application. When you click on the application box, it's going to pull you to a screen like this where you can upload your documents. So there are two tabs here. There's an upload documents tab and there's a bank info tab. And you can see on the right side of the screen, this is a screenshot. You can see how you can click between the two tabs at the very top of it. But this is where you actually go to upload your documents. And this has got a listing of the documents. Again, application certification, photo ID, business tax returns, proof of business location, and so forth. Along with, you'll see on the right side of the screen, there's a row of little dialogues where you can see in this example, the application certification has been completed. It's green. The photo ID hasn't been uploaded yet. It's listed as pending. Everything that's in green has been uploaded. Everything that's in orange is pending. The little caret on the side all the way at the end, or what you can click on to upload that document. Please upload all of your documents as soon as you can. We do need, all of these documents. The sooner they're uploaded, the better. The sooner your application can get selected for processing. If for some reason during the actual processing of the application, once it's been selected and it's being processed, if a document has been rejected because a document isn't correct, or the document needs to be modified or changed or wasn't legible or so forth, you're going to see, this is again an example of the green box and the orange box. There'll be a red box that says it's rejected. If it's red, that means you need to re-upload the document. You need to go in and you need to make sure that the document is legible and is complete and is applicable to what you're using it for. It's not mismarked. It's not, someone didn't upload a cat picture as their business tax return. So make sure it's the document that it's supposed to be. Also, you can also change your business type on the screen. It should automatically pull your business type from your actual file where it says change business type. This example is a corporation in this particular screenshot, but it should show your actual business type. And again, don't forget, they do need to be PDF files. That is important. And again, there are full instructions here in this document on how to click, where to click to upload your documents. I do want to point out that they can be password protected PDFs. If you do have password protection turned on in your PDFs, you can type your password in where it'll be stored, and it'll be stored separately from the document so they can be viewed by the processors. If you don't include your passwords, of course, they're not going to be able to view your documents. That's going to make it hard for them to process them. But there are full instructions again in this document that you can go back and refer to. Also, linking your bank account information. Lendistry uses a third-party system called L.E.A.R.N. Uses a third-party technology called L.E.A.R.N to set up ACH transfers to your bank account. And it uses the L.E.A.R.N system, and I'm not going to walk too much through the L.E.A.R.N process. This actually doesn't really need to occur until the very, very end, until you're ready to actually receive your funding and all your other documents are approved. But you do link your bank account through L.E.A.R.N, and again, it's through that tab that I showed you on the right in the previous slide. I do want to point out that it's very important that it does need to be a business bank account. You can't receive the ACH monies from the business grant to a personal account. It does need to be a business account in the name of the business. So what will happen is L.E.A.R.N can look at your account and see that it's set up as a business bank account or set up as a personal bank account. And you may need to provide proof to show that it is a business bank account if L.E.A.R.N can't figure that out, or they can't tell from your processing. But it is very important that it's a business bank account. A use of a personal bank account is not acceptable. You can't do that. And if you don't have a personal bank account set up for your business and you're using your personal bank account, we would ask you to set up a business bank account. You need to set one up. So if you need assistance setting up a business bank account, if you can't go back to your existing lender and set one up, we do have organizations like Ponce Bank, Spring Bank, Carver Bank, and so forth that have volunteered to help small businesses set up accounts, business bank accounts. There is assistance available to try to set one up. Know that to get a business bank account, essentially the documentation you need is the documentation you're already providing for this grant. So there's nothing here on this grant that everything you should need to get a business bank account is something you're already providing as part of getting this grant in the first place. So you should have those documents available to you fairly easily if you get into this stage. But it does need to be a business bank account. It is very important that it's a business bank account. And finally, I do want to cover the application statuses in the portal. So when you log into the portal, these are some of the example statuses of your grant application. All the way to the left here, you've got incomplete. That means that your application is not fully submitted. You haven't clicked yes to submit your answers. So you can always click on the edit application button, and edit application will let you go through and edit your answers. And once you hit yes, it will send you through. This next possible one here, awaiting selection process. This means your grant has been, your application has been entered. You've hit yes, it's in place. Now you need to upload your documents and your bank information. You can click on that purple box there, upload documents and bank information, to upload your documents and your bank information. But it's going to sit in the waiting selection process until your documents are uploaded. Once it has been selected for review, it's going to move to the in review pending validations. This means someone has opened your documents or opened your application, is currently reviewing it. It's important at this point that you're most vigilant about watching for contact from Lendistry. This is probably when they'll have questions. This is probably when they'll be looking into your application to make sure that your documents are correct. If they need additional information, they're going to reach out to you right here. So it's really between the selection process and the in review process right there. This is the most important part. It's possible that you won't go into review if you haven't uploaded your tax returns yet. So make sure you put your tax returns in. That could be keeping you from getting selected for review. Any of your documents that are missing could be keeping you selected from getting review. So you want to get them uploaded. Once your documents have been verified, then you're going to move on to currently on waitlist. This means that all your documentation has been verified. You're in line, you're in final bank validation, waiting to get your bank information validated so they can do the transfer for your funds. And finally, there is one other last status that your application was not selected. This would mean that for some reason you didn't meet the program eligibility requirements. So your application has been deactivated. It's not going to be selected for further processing. If your application is listed as not selected, that means again that for some reason you didn't qualify. You can always contact the 877 number. They can give you more information as to why. There is one other possible status that's not listed on the screen. There's an inactive status that will show that if your application has gone more than 60 days without being uploaded, having your documents uploaded, it can show up as inactive, which means you have to click on the upload documents to reactivate it. So those are the different statuses, and that sums up the program. So let me turn my camera back on. So if you have any questions, this would be the time. Let me go through and look at the chat and see if anyone has had any questions. Check the Q&A to see if anyone has any questions about anything.
There was a question in the chat, Matthew. I don't know if you got a chance to answer it. Does money received from a PPP loan count towards gross receipts?
No, it doesn't. You do have to have, there is a limitation how much you can receive for PPP, which again was the $250,000, but it does not count as a gross receipt. So that is something separate. Money you receive for PPP is not gross receipts. And I also see a question here about, can I have my accountant or bookkeeper apply on my behalf? Does it need to be me? You could have your accountant or bookkeeper apply. I would suggest that if you can do it yourself, I would do it yourself, because Lendistry may be more comfortable dealing with you. They might be looking for more information from your accountant or your bookkeeper to show that they're authorized, an authorized agent of you to do your grant. There are a lot of fraud concerns with a program of this size, and people applying for grants for businesses that aren't theirs. So there's going to be an extra level of vetting what's going to occur. So I wouldn't say it's impossible for your accountant or your bookkeeper to apply for you, but it could slow things down and create a headache for you or your accountant or bookkeeper in the process. It might make sense just to have you do it. And that looks, I'm not seeing any other questions come up. Let's see. Yes, a business does need to be organized in the state of New York at this point in time. It does need to be a New York-based business. And for the profit question, it specifically looks at 2019 for your profitability. You need to be able to show that in 2019, prior to COVID, the for-profit business had at least $1 in profit. So it doesn't look at 2020 profitability. 2020 profitability doesn't matter. That's just 2019 profitability on the tax return, and it needs to show $1. That was what was determined to be the viability, to answer the viability clause of the legislation. That's what was used, and that was determined to be the fairest method because it's something that's already being collected that's going to be across all businesses. So there's no question as to whether or not it's a tangible, it's like a tangible line, as opposed to being something where it's subjective, where someone's looking at it and going, maybe this one's viable, maybe this one's not. It makes it a nice hard measurement. And there's a question about the restaurant revitalization fund. I don't know if it's going to be replenished. That would be something that would happen with the federal government, but it's been so long now since it ran out of money, because it's been months and months since it's ran out of money, and I haven't heard anything in the press about it getting any more money. I haven't heard any rumblings that it was going to get any more money. I have a feeling it's probably just not going to get any more money. And this would be a situation where, like I said, if you didn't receive the money from that, you can always apply for this program. If you did receive Restaurant Revitalization Fund money, like I said, you can't receive them both. You could potentially be expected to return this money if you ended up getting restaurant revitalization money, because that's going to be in your actual documents when you go to sign your final grant agreement. But I have a feeling that there's not going to be any more money in the restaurant revitalization fund, just because it's been so long now, we haven't heard anything about it. So, well, I do want to remind everybody, mysmallbusinessrecovery.com is the website where you can go and view all this information, view this document, make your application, view the FAQ. All the information about the program is available there. 877-721-0097 is the help center line. That is the call center. They have direct access to your applications. They can answer your questions about your application. The best place to get information as to what's happening with your application is 877-721-0097. That is the best place to find out what's happening. But please make sure you upload all your documents and take advantage of this great program. There is still money available in this program, and let's get as much of this money upstate as we can. So, this is a great opportunity for everyone to apply.
Awesome. And I just want to again thank Matthew for being here. I was telling him earlier that I think he and I have linked up maybe 4 or 5 times now to offer these workshops. And I said the greatest thing is just that there are still grants available for small businesses during this pandemic. So please take advantage. I want to thank our partner in bringing this presentation to you all today. That's Ithaca Area Economic Development. Ms. Heather McDaniel and Mr. Chuck Schwerin is here. And again, just thank you to you all, and thank you to our sponsor, Tompkins Trust Company. So we'll see you guys at the next one. Hopefully we can get Matthew back again when any new things come down the pipe. And you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And if we don't see you again, have a great weekend, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all.